explore how companies can discover and tap into new talent pools of promising employees in the reentry community and other sideline populations or hidden workers by rethinking recruiting strategies, HR technology, job descriptions, and onboarding supports. But before we start, just a quick word about Goodwill Columbus. Most folks know our brand because of our retail locations and donation centers. But most people don't know that we are one of the largest nonprofit, or as I like to say, for-purpose workforce providers in the country. Across the country, about 1 million people a year come through our workforce centers, and they receive all kinds of supports from us. 80% of those people have a high school degree or less. 60% are people who represent ethnic and racial minorities. Tens of thousands of veterans, people who have been impacted by the justice system, and individuals with disabilities. So when we talk about hidden workers, those are our people. Those are who we serve. At Goodwill Columbus, our vision statement is that we want all individuals to be embraced as valued and dignified members in our community. And I am of the simple belief, but a strong belief, that when someone has a good job, it goes a long way in helping that individual find a sense of self-value and dignity. So let me tee this up. What do we mean by sideline populations or hidden workers? Based on the Hidden Workers Report done jointly by Accenture and the Harvard Business School Future of Work Project, and frankly, I think it's one of the best reports ever done, and I'm not saying that because Paula's here, but they state that there are approximately 27 million Americans who are eager and want to find work, but remain underemployed or unemployed due to hiring practices that keep them hidden from employers. Companies often screen hidden workers such as mothers, those with criminal records, neurodiverse workers, and other populations out of applicant pools. This isn't intentional, but new applicant tracking systems are programmed to negatively filter candidates as opposed to affirmatively looking for skills. One significant filter is continuity of employment. However, in the last 20 years, think about this, through 9/11, the financial crisis, and our pandemic, there are a whole lot of folks who have not had or been able to enjoy continuous employment. So reforming these hiring practices can uncover this missing pool of talent, close skill gaps, and improve workforce diversity. To provide some context, here in Ohio, according to current census data, there are nearly 840,000 working-age Ohioans who have a disability. In our country, each year, about 600,000 individuals return to society from incarceration. In Ohio, we see about 20,000 people per year come out of the prison system, and that doesn't include the folks who spend some time in our local jails. So with that as a backdrop, our panelists are here today to talk about their respective companies and how they're tapping into hidden workers. So Corrine, I'm going to start with you. JPMorgan Chase is one of the leading organizations with the Second Chance Business Coalition. So why was it created and how's it going so far?
Sure. So we thought about our Second Chance program in terms of 4 pillars. One is hiring. The second is public policy. The third is philanthropy. And the fourth relates to partnerships with businesses. So we were one of the founding members of the Second Chance Business Coalition, and it currently is represented by over 40 companies across many different industries who are looking at advancing employment opportunities for people with criminal backgrounds. I would encourage you to look at the Second Chance Business Coalition website. On there is an onboarding ramp guide. That guide can provide, ideas around how you might think about HR policies, employment practices, how you might think about the culture impacts it may have in your company, and how to get employees involved in volunteerism around your Second Chance program, as well as some ideas around philanthropy related to the Second Chance program. There's also on the website something called the Second Chance Community Map. As you are well aware, it definitely takes a village in order to bring folks into the applicant pool. Goodwill's a great partner of ours of helping us identify people who are ready to join the workforce, and we're ready to bring them on. We did ban the box off of our application processes many years ago, which helped us expand the talent pool that came in. We've hired to date about 4,300 people across the U.S. That's about 10% of our U.S. hiring in the last year from our Second Chance program. And they're filling jobs across all of our lines of businesses and at all levels, mostly at entry-level positions. But those folks now have career opportunities in account services, transaction processing, those kinds of areas in order to fulfill their careers at JPMorgan Chase.
That's great. Thanks, Corrine. So, Doug, I'll jump to you. You launched color-coded labs here in Columbus in an attempt to kind of connect diverse populations to this program. So, why did you create it, and how's it going so far?
Thank you. And so I'm a technologist. I entered into the technology field, and I've had quite a successful career. I'm very happy with what has happened with me. I'm a black man, an African American, and I'm in a field that doesn't see a lot of black CIOs. I've been asked a lot of questions. I've had a lot of great relationships with other technology leaders, talking about how can we recruit more people into the field. And it's gotten quite intense where that's concerned. I've also worked in public sector with cities, and I've seen how economic development works very well, and how communities with large technology or tech-oriented workforce can attract companies, economic development spirals, and everybody is happy. I wasn't seeing a lot of that in many diverse communities that I interact with. But I have been talking a lot about workforce and how to build that workforce as an economic development driver. I was invited to co-found and lead Color-Coded Labs as the CEO, and I must acknowledge Mark Kwame, who I saw walk in, who is one of our co-founders and one of the visionaries behind the concept of a Color-Coded Labs. Mark, people like myself, have familiarity with the extraordinary level of demand for technology talent in the industry and some sort of a low supply. So Color-Coded Labs is a tech boot camp. We specialize in full-stack software development using JavaScript because full-stack software development is a good foundational technology starting point for a lot of people that allows people to get into the middle of the market, not just entry level, but maybe a junior developer at good salaries and good career pathways. We target underserved, underrepresented, and historically marginalized communities, and when we talk about diversity, we mean everybody. So we do include LGBTQ+ and neurodiversity and all sorts of different things. Our current cohort has, about half women, about half men, and 2 transgendered people. And so it's an interesting experience we've had in attracting people to our boot camp. There are numerous boot camps around. But that's how it's going. And the relationships with companies that have said, I hear what you're doing, I like what you're doing, how can we get more involved? Instead of just hearing that as a CIO, I felt that it was a good move for me to become a CEO and begin solving the problem. We have a talent pipeline, it's just leaky, and the pipe is too small. It needs to be opened up, the leaks need to be repaired, we need some efficiency, but we don't need a new pipeline. We've got to fix the pipeline that we have.
Thanks, Doug. So, Paula, Accenture's working hard to develop partnerships to tap into this hidden worker population. You've told me about your relationship with Udacity and Columbus State, and you also shared a story about a young woman named Sophie. So, talk about that.
Sure, thank you. Well, before I go there, I want to say 2 things.
Please.
One, if you notice that I hobbled up here, I've injured my foot, but I want to tell you that Ohio Health, my doctor's office, they're taking care of me, making me an orthopedic appointment, I think, as we speak. So Dr. Rogers over there, if my phone rings with a 566 number, get that for me. And so Ohio Health is doing me well today, so thank you. And second, the Hidden Workers report that you mentioned, you can get and download at Accenture.com. So all you have to type in there is Hidden Workers, and you can get that copy. And my lead researcher is here today. And so if you want to talk to her about the research that we did for that report, she's here and would love to talk to you about that. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story about Sophie, and I've known Sophie since she was in kindergarten because she went to school her whole life with my daughter. They're both now 2 years out of high school. Unfortunately, they were 2020 high school graduates. But Sophie's taken a very different path than my daughter. My daughter went the traditional path. She went off to college. She's a sophomore. She's doing great things. And Sophie didn't have access to that sort of traditional path. She didn't have a college savings account that was going to help her go away to school. So she applied to Columbus State, and she is taking 1 or 2 classes a semester. And she's kind of trying to figure things out, and she's working at the local ice cream shop while she does that. She can't afford to do more than 1 or 2 classes at a time. That's what she can afford. She's still living at home with her parents. She's trying to get out and be able to rent her own apartment, so that she's kind of making that balance every day. But like I said, I've known Sophie since she was in kindergarten. I know that she is a good student. She went to the same high school my daughter went to. She got decent grades, and she wants to be part of, she wants to get a degree. She wants to be in the working world. So I called Sophie up. Actually, I did not call her. I didn't snap her, but I did text her and said, hey, Sophie, I want to mentor you. You ever call someone and say, you don't have a choice. I am going to mentor you, and I want to talk to you about how we might be able to get you into a Learn and Earn program at Accenture. I know that you've always talked about something in technology is interesting to you, but we're fearful that, oh, well, I didn't take calculus, I didn't do all of these things in high school that I felt like were prerequisites that I had to do to be able to do some sort of career like that. I was like, nope, let's talk about it. So we met for coffee, and I told her about a program that we had at Accenture, and it was, as you said, Doug, with Udacity, which is a training partner of ours, and we had 600 scholarships to Udacity's training program across the U.S. Similarly, it was going to be a 50-50 gender-balanced program. It was, we were definitely looking to attract diverse people, but all they had to do was take a little online quiz, and then we awarded 600 scholarships nationwide. My role in it is I want them to be in Columbus. If we're going to have these scholarships, the program's completely online, so it can be done anywhere. So I convinced Sophie to apply. There were 2 paths. You could do Java or data and analytics, and she chose Java. And this week, actually, so she applied, she got the scholarship. This is week number 6, and she is going to finish that program. And then we are going to put her into our Learn and Earn program at Accenture, which then allows her to pay for her Columbus State classes, hopefully gets her enough money. She can get her own apartment and move out from her parents. And then as she finishes that program, hopefully we'll offer her a full-time job, and she'll be able to complete her degree, and we have a new worker. That's the cycle.
Yes, that's great, Paula. I love the story about Sophie. Thank you for sharing. Corrine, back to you. I think you were in D.C. yesterday.
I was, yes.
And you've told me about how the bank has engaged the FDIC on rules and regulations when it comes to hiring. So what kind of role does public policy play in this conversation?
Yeah, so it's not enough just for businesses and local community leaders to come together, but to make real systemic change, we need help with public policy. So we've been working with the FDIC and Congress to open up the number of banking jobs that are available to our second chance applicants. While making sure that we continue with our goals around safety and soundness and, risk management. And so that effort's been very positive. Our policy center is also working with state and local governments to help improve the application pipeline and talent pipeline for us. As a matter of fact, I believe in Michigan and in Pennsylvania, they're looking at some policies that automatically expunge some low-level crimes from folks' records. And as well, it is hard, time-consuming, and costly to try to remove those types of low-level crimes from your records so that you can apply to those jobs. So in terms of statewide policy, those kinds of things, I think would be really helpful to employers to try to improve and expand our talent pipeline as people who are coming out of the system and have paid their time, they're definitely due, a good job. And getting those low-level criminal records expunged is really helpful.
Great, thank you, Corrine.
Could I just add on a point
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
that?
please, Paula.
So at Accenture, we do similar things, and we have all these people, but then I have them work for my clients. You all are my clients. And if I have hired, someone who's come from had a record or whatever those things, and then I go to bring them to my client, like your policies then, can have this very far-reaching impact. And the more we can talk about, what is it, how do we fix it, how do we access this talent, I just think the better off that we can be. So, a great partnership with JPMC along those ways. Long ago, it would have been, you need the 4-year degree, you need to have this background check, you need to do all of these things. Now we're, okay, well, we may do those things, but we're going to make a human-based decision about how we move that forward. So those sort of partnerships, often we can't do it completely on our own.
Yeah, thanks, Paula. So let's face it, a lot of us, the way we were able to find a job was through a personal network or connections. But the reality is a lot of the populations we're talking about today, they don't have those networks, they don't have those connections. So Doug, you're involved with an organization, Black Tech Columbus, and you're trying to address that issue. So elaborate on that.
Yeah, I'd like to do it in the context of the story of Sophie, if I could, because very interesting thing, the word Java was the teeny tiniest bit of that story. We know where she lived, what her life was like, her background. We know that you had to reach out to her. Maybe you didn't have to. She was not going in that direction. Had someone not reached her, told her that it was an available pathway, and explained that I would be there with you to support you. Also, after she completes that, there's a pathway beyond that that leads into a number of different directions where there are now resources. That's what it takes. That's one. And it's such a good story there. It wasn't about Java, though, right? The training part of that is this teeny tiny bit, but the people part, the community part, very important. I'm on the advisory board of Per Scholas Columbus. It's a nonprofit that trains people for the technology industry. I sat through a couple of graduations. I was astounded by the level of talent and diversity in some of these groups, and many folks head towards an entry-level technology job, which for a lot of us means service desk. It means help desk. It's actually pretty hard to get from help desk to one little level over. These are perfect people for cybersecurity, data analytics, so many different development, but there's not really a great pathway there. I went to college. I have benefited from networks. I know all the technology people around Columbus. And if you don't have that information in those contexts, the amount of talent that you have and that opportunity has limitations. It's only going to get you so far. At some point, you need Paula to actually call you up and say, hey, I'm over here now, I can give you a bit of information. I had a lot of younger technologists reaching out to me and saying, Doug, we'd love to have you mentor us. It got to be kind of a high number. I recognize I could not do that, but we can mentor each other. I can't mentor that many people, but we can connect into a network, a community. Ecosystems come from communities first. And I was also finding that the hiring community was struggling to find Black technology professionals. Where are they? How do I reach them? How do I communicate with them? And so we've co-founded Black Tech Columbus to create a space for Black technology professionals to connect, collaborate, and create, which includes, don't just get a great job, maybe start a company. But we created these networks and we gather, and one of the first things that we found was that companies were really interested in talking and being present. And I must say, and I know we'll get into solutions, but one of the ways to recruit diverse populations is to build credibility, to be present, and to be in their faces, communicating with people. You can't do that if we don't gather. And so we needed to convene this community so that the Columbus, the central Ohio area, has a Black technology community. I have to be honest with us as a state and everything, folks see Atlanta in that way. They see DC like that. They were not seeing Columbus like that. And You don't attract Intel and Amgen and Meta and some of these folks to our community without presenting ourselves as a diverse talent pool. And that means you have to build that, and it's not just jobs and training programs. It is networks and those kinds of things. So that's why we founded that. We really want to be a part of that story. I'm talking to you, JP, as you leave the state and say, come to Columbus, come to Ohio. We want you to be able to say, there's something called Black Tech Columbus here in Color-Coded Labs. Look at the diversity that we have. We can beat our competitors by presenting ourselves in that way, and that's why we founded that organization.
No, that's great, Doug. Love it.
I just hired a Perscalis intern for as my summer intern. I'm super excited about her. I think she's going to be awesome.
Exactly. That's how we get it done, right?
That's right.
Okay. So Paula, back to the Hidden Workers Report. Again, look it up. It's really good. One of the recommendations is that the business community needs to not just look at this as like corporate social responsibility, but that there's an ROI here. There's a business case here. So I know you measure this, so talk about the results.
Sure. So I would start with, and if you've ever heard our CEO, Julie Sweet, talk about this, she talks about, we had HR over here doing one thing. They have their set of policies and whatever that might be that they're guiding through, and they're trying to do things. Then we have what we call corporate citizenship and all of the things that we do in the community and good for the world. Then we had over here the business, the people who need the workers, the people who are driving P&Ls. And the three of these groups were all trying to do great things, but they weren't doing them together. And she's very vocal about how do we pull those three things together so that they're working in harmony as opposed to working in silos. And if we can look across that, that's when we can really make progress. I can change my HR policies. I can make sure that what I'm doing from corporate citizenship supports the business and the ROI that they are looking to achieve. So at Accenture, we have a program, apprenticeship program, learn and earn, whatever you want to call it, and we've done about 1,600 of those folks who have come into our company as full-time employees. Of that, 1 in 3 are female, so we got a little bit of work to do, but we're at 33% of those are female, and 60% diverse. So of color, of different ethnicity than white. So pretty good on the diversity factor. And 80% of those 1,600 that we've hired since 2016 still with us, still working with us and advancing through the company. So we've had good success in bringing people in. We've had good success in retaining people. And I have a business leaders who are now part of that cycle who are telling me that I have more diversity of thought, I have better creativity in my teams, and can I have more? So that's, to me, the ultimate of can I please have more? That is driving, yes, this is a successful program, and yes, we want to do more.
Thank you, Paula. Corrine, back to you.
Yeah.
Not to get a plug for nonprofits, but you referenced working with community groups and nonprofits. And what's the role of philanthropy again?
Yeah, so I talked about our 4 pillars: hiring, public policy, philanthropy, and business partnerships. Philanthropy is a super important part of it. We've invested over $12 million in community partners across Chicago, New York, LA, and here in Columbus. So I know Goodwill is one of our really important community partners. But as you think about people coming out of the incarceration system, there are a lot of supports that are needed around people to get them ready to come into the workforce. So we work with legal aid in terms of helping people, with their backgrounds, their resumes, the application process. Goodwill is a good supporter around helping people getting acclimated back into kind of the day-to-day society. The Urban League's a really important partner, and we have other partners. So these kind of various support systems across our community are really important. So in terms of, kind of thinking about that on-ramps guide that I mentioned on the Second Chance Business Coalition, that's one specific part of that guide that talks about how you might think about philanthropy, where are the needs in terms of helping support people become acclimated back into society and into the job market, and really to help companies, kind of provide that process.
Yeah, thanks, Corrine. So Doug, you and I talked a little bit last week, and one of the things you said to me, it really struck me that someone like me, a lot of us in this room, we can talk about growth opportunities and career pathways and all these buzzwords to potential job seekers. But the reality is, a lot of those individuals, they just don't trust that. So how can we gain that trust as a business community?
Yeah, and I hope everybody knows this, many of the opportunities that we have as businesses are being self-selected out. The community is saying, these are the jobs that are for me and people like me, and these jobs are not for me. And the jobs and roles and pathways that are in the not for me, not ours, not us category is a whole lot, because people move towards the experiences that they have and in their neighborhood and in their family what was kind of available to them, which is, by the way, why a lot of people wind up in the prison system, because the opportunities that they could see and understand cause them to go in the wrong direction in their lives. When we come to the table and say, we've got a $65,000 to $70,000 a year opportunity for you, you might as well be Tinkerbell with a magic wand and saying, okay, that's not real, thanks for stopping by, and you just don't have that kind of credibility. And as we've been asked, what's the most difficult part of color-coded labs kind of moving the needle here? It is in that kind of credibility and trust and changing the narrative of what opportunities are available in this new American community, in this Latino community, in this Black community. And how do you do that? It's with presence. But this is a really difficult thing that we all have to get over. And I must say that I'm going to carry the message back to the communities I interact with, that I was at the Ohio Business Roundtable today, and we had a conversation about second chance, reentry, kind of employment. And that the CEOs in the state of Ohio are serious. Because when you walk up to people who are coming out of prison and say, let's get you a tech job, you will be laughed out of the room, like they're not going to hire me. And we have to be present with people and build up a group of people who have benefited from this to go back into the neighborhoods, back into the churches and the mosques and the temples, back into the K through 12 schools, and show themselves present there. That's what I do, right? Because a lot of people have never seen a Black CIO before. So you've got to be present, show people what can be done, and do it consistently and constantly. And it is trench warfare, right? And if we are going to have a community of talented professionals coming out of every neighborhood and community that we seek, that's our pool, that's Ohio, right? We're going to have to be present, talking, and doing those things. So for me, that means things like the African American Male Wellness Walk, or certain hip hop concerts, or things like that where we're there with a table. What are you doing here? I want to talk to you about tech. Oh, can you talk to my son? He's on my couch. Can you talk to him? Yes, we can. So, or Sophie, right? Scooping ice cream, bagging groceries, honorable work. But I think they could do a lot better there. And quite frankly, the salaries are so high that many people never dreamed in their lifetime they would get there. And they're highly available. So those are the kinds of things that gain credibility and build trust. And we must not disrupt that trust as it's building. We all have to be a part of that narrative and be on the same sheet of music and telling communities, no, honestly, we're serious about this. Here are some hires. Here are some people moving through. Here are some executives and middle managers who came through just like you can. So that's what I think we need to do.
Thanks, Doug. Paula, one of the things we've done at Goodwill Columbus here in the last year is reviewed all of our job descriptions, about 170 job descriptions, and frankly, all due respect to my higher ed friends, we struck a lot of the degree requirements and really tried to focus on what are the skills that you need. So I think you said Accenture is anticipating about 25% of your incoming workers will not be required to have a four-year college degree. So how has the HR department embraced this or reacted to this, and how are you measuring the impact of making those changes?
Sure, and so entry level by the end of this year will be at 20% that will not have a four-year degree. Some people go into a learn and earn program, but some jobs don't require that degree. I would say the other thing we did when we reviewed all of those job descriptions, somewhat back to your point about trust, the words in them, like who came up with all these words in this job description that nobody knows what that actually means. We simplified all of our job titles and the descriptions associated with them. So with the point of, this is stuck with me, having our HR department, we want you to filter in as opposed to filter out. Filter in. Look for ways that we can include people in the process as opposed to filtering out. So yes, there are policies, and yes, there are things, that box checking thing, Corrine, that you mentioned. There's all of those sorts of things, but that fundamental mindset of your job is to filter in and not to filter out has been the biggest change that has allowed us to kind of move forward with that sort of mindset. We're also in an interesting time. It's a time of we need workers. And we align metrics, we align everything around. These are now the policies. Certain jobs, these are the set requirements, and they are written in plain English so that they can be understood.
Can I
Please,
tag in there, Ryan? The HR function also used to be like, this is how you gain a role. You prepare yourself. I will tell you I'm looking for this role. Here are the requirements. You apply, you interview, you get the job, you start. That's how it used to work. Now with networks and who you know and different kinds of things, that system, I'm not going to say it's broken, or it's not what our future looks like, right? And so with boot camps and other training kinds of things, one of the things that we're doing in Color Coded Labs is we're having a corporate meet and greet. And we do a talk show just like this, put 4 or 5 students in front of the stage, and we ask them questions about their lives. They can be charming, inspiring, interesting. The lead engineers at companies look at the students and they say, I gotta have that person on my team. Haven't said the word Java yet. Haven't talked about their coding ability, but the leadership and inspiration that folks come to the table with. And it wasn't an interview. And that's the kind of interaction that you want with candidates, right? And you look at people and you say, why can't I get this person on my team? Because they don't fit your job description at all. And every leader that I've spoken to says, I can give them all that. Well, what's it on the paper for? How is that helping you get the person who you're really looking for, who has grit, leadership, resilience, creativity, and brings diversity of thought to your team? That's not on the position description. So,
Which is an excellent point. Sophie, she never interviewed for anything. I sat there with her while she filled out the form, but it was very much, what is your name, where do you live, sort of thing. I watched her hit enter, said, good job, and off she went. There was no interview, there wasn't anything. Now, if we get to that point, I will help her through that, but she filled out a piece of paper and off she went.
And that's the least value add is, some of that process. So.
And I'd encourage you to have these conversations. It's a fascinating conversation to have with your HR and talent teams, and I'm sure many of you have. But one of the things I would do is sit down, and it's kind of almost like a third grader. Just keep asking why. Why? When they say this position needs this degree, why? Because even in my role, why couldn't someone at Goodwill Columbus start off as a retail associate in one of our stores, and she can work her way up? So I encourage you to have that conversation. It's a fascinating one to have. So, Corrine, Jamie Dimon recently penned an op-ed in the Columbus Dispatch, and he said that it's a moral and economic imperative for employers to clear pathways to employment for hidden workers. So just talk about how important private sector leadership is to these efforts.
Yeah, and it kind of all starts with the conversation we just had around the war for talent. I mean, we continue to have a war for talent, and we have found very good talent in the pool that we're pulling from in our Second Chance program. So that talent is there, and it makes a lot of good economic sense too. Which, from a business perspective, you want to do what's right, but you also want to do what's great for your company. And we find that coming from that talent pool, too. And I think if you talk to Joe DeLoss from Hot Chicken Takeover, he will tell you that his workforce has some of the lowest attrition. And for us, attrition is quite something that we're always trying to manage. Particularly recently, all of us are experiencing a lot of attrition. So this talent pool, which is an untapped talent pool, comes with diversity, lots of good skills that they're bringing to the table, low attrition, loyalty, and makes a lot of economic sense. And I think Jamie will say at the end of the day, it's just the right thing to do.
Great, thanks.
Can I
Please.
tag in? I'm tagging in
No,
on
please,
everything
please.
here. But just
We're trying to time it out here, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
just the low attrition aspect of it. I just, the characteristics of members of many of these different communities is such that we have created an employment environment that is just so fast. You're highly skilled, you're in great demand, you're going to come in, gather a few more skills, pick up a title, and you're out of there. Some of the communities we're dealing with, including restored citizens, that's not their mindset. And there's a degree of longevity and loyalty that I think all of us thought was gone. It's not necessarily gone, but there are people who appreciate and value it more and are prepared to grow for longer periods of time with companies. And I just think I think that's what we're seeing when you're dealing with a population that may have been hidden to us in the past. We're seeing levels of loyalty and interest in just digging deep and learning this really well. So you're getting years and not months.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. So, please,
Can I
Paula,
ask?
go ahead.
Can
Yeah,
I
please.
call an audible and ask a
Yeah,
question?
absolutely, absolutely.
So one of the things in the Hidden Workers report that talks about barriers is, especially for women, childcare and transportation. How do you get to where you need to go? And even if you may very well be in a hybrid situation, but you still have to occasionally get to where you need to go. So these are the two primary barriers to how do you access these workers. So I'm really curious about your opinion on that. So, okay, great, we all decide, no problem. Mark, you were saying, right, we have childcare, we have like all of these amenities on campus. So if I provide, everybody in this room is like, great, I'm gonna provide transportation and I'm gonna provide childcare. Let's just pretend that was easy. Is that of value do you think it's of value to people, or do you think it plays back into the mistrust of, wait a minute, now I'm going to make this salary and I'm going to have childcare? Do you have any thoughts on like how do we balance those barriers and how we solve them?
I certainly do, and the answer is yes. We have to take a whole person approach to some of this stuff, and it's not because the workers we're talking about are less than or more needy or anything like that. It's because we're trying to make a shift into a new pool, a new area of the pool, and we're going to have to rethink the kind of resources and thinking where that's concerned. So one of the aspects of color-coded labs, again, is that we do most of our training in the evening. One of the best employees is someone who's already working, right? So we're not necessarily taking folks who haven't been doing anything. Folks are working all day, and we are getting a lot of parents and people who have very complex lives that need to be dealt with. And so some of those wraparound services are really good. We're not necessarily equipped for that, but there's a lot of partners who step in on the child care, on the transportation, on rental assistance, and some of those things. And I don't want to paint that as a characteristic of all of these workers. They don't all need that same stuff. But I do think that often we present people with an opportunity that works for us. And the hours and the time frame and where they work and is not necessarily working for them, not because they are greedy or soft and I just want to work at home and you just make it happen for me, but because of a life situation that we can make some adjustments for to get an ace employee that 3 years from now could transform our business. And there's dozens of them there available for you. So yes, that is a factor, and we certainly look at that as something to pay attention to. And in our conversations with companies, when we're saying, here's this person, because you walk in the door, right? You bring them in. So I know this person. My daughter went to high school with them. I've seen the training that they've done. I vouch for this person, and that's what it takes sometimes. We are talking to these organizations about some other things that they're bringing in with them, which are not that big a deal, but we need to be honest about it.
Great, thanks, Doug. So in our closing minutes here, and Paul, I'm going to start with you, and we'll work back this way. Just kind of just practical first steps that everyone in this room can kind of think about, take away from here, and start to put into place as they think about their hiring practices at their firms.
So I will be, Sophie is one person. And you can say, well, I can't change the world one person at a time. It's important to Sophie that conversation happened and that opportunity occurred. And Pat told me there were 290 people here today. If every one of you just found one person, one hidden worker that you could help get into a program, that you could sponsor into this, that you could have that conversation with, then we'd be from 1 to almost 300. Right? We can't, I think that we can all make a difference. One person. I know you all know one person. So that's my challenge to you, is make it personal and find your one person.
Doug, final thoughts?
I would say go heavy in some places and plant a flag to begin to build credibility, and don't expect it in the first year. My daughter is at Morgan State University, an HBCU in Baltimore, Maryland, and she goes to school there, and they show up on campus and they say, welcome to Morgan State University, Boeing. First word out of their mouths. And they say Boeing at all the times. And she just got back from a site visit to Boeing. She has no interest in working at Boeing. They're going to get her, right? Because their name is on the building, they're sponsoring events, they're inviting them out to the company, and they're going to get her. And why she went into marketing, I don't know, but I told her to go to data science. But if you get present and be consistent there with your name on the wall, I think that you'll build the credibility to have people coming to you fairly consistently.
Thanks, Doug. Corrine, final tips, thoughts?
Yeah, I'd probably say look at the jobs that you have in your companies, identify which jobs might be eligible for second chance candidates, and then work with folks like Ryan to help, kind of fulfill those roles.
Thank you, Corrine. Thank you. So I think we've got a couple minutes. So if I'm allowed to do this, maybe just one question that anyone wants to ask of the panel. Any follow-ups as I look at Pat to see if lunch is about ready? Any questions? Questions, thoughts? Okay. Well, I would like to thank the panel, Paula, Doug, and Corrine, for all of your comments today. Thank you again to BRT, and thanks to all of you.